Morning and welcome to Europe by Bands. In this series I travel Europe by bands. For this first episode I'm on my way to a stretch of highway in Germany which has an overhead wire. Like what? But first, welcome to Useless Facts with Holland Station. Did you know that at this border crossing near Bad Nieuweschans, one petrol station is located in the Netherlands and the other in Germany? That in itself is not that crazy, but what is crazy is that the highway doesn't cross the border until a little bit further on. So when you go to this gas station, you go to Germany and then you go back to the Netherlands to go to Germany again. Now that we have officially left the always relatively sunny Groningen, the rain started pouring down. As some of you have commented on one of my previous videos, German autobahns are much less pleasant to drive on in the rain. In many places in the Netherlands we have asphalt that allows water to pass through the asphalt. In Germany, however, all the water has to run off the road, which can cause a lot of spraying water and possibly even aquaplaning. Anyway, after 2.5 hours I arrived at the harbor of Hamburg, one of the biggest in Europe and probably the biggest in Germany. Yep, that's right. And I think you already know how a harbor works, but well, you never know. So, this is where the cranes unload the cargo ship. These are self-driving wagons that move the containers within the yard. This is a shunting locomotive that comes to collect some containers to bring them to the railway yard. And this is the railway yard, where the collected containers are combined into one long train. The port of Hamburg is connected by this bridge. And sorry, I have to do this. Welcome to Useless Facts with Holland Station. When it opened in 1974, this bridge was the longest cable-stayed bridge in the world. At least according to its Dutch Wikipedia page. So I don't know if it's really true, but at least now you know. Anyway, let's head towards the overhead wire. It was already a bit late, so I drove a little faster and after 45 minutes or so, I finally arrived. Welcome to Teststrecke A1, a 5 km long stretch of autobahn south of Lübeck equipped with an overhead wire. Here an alternative way of driving on green energy is being tested. Instead of filling trucks with batteries, they are investigating putting pantographs on the trucks. This way you need less space for the batteries and you can charge the remaining batteries while driving. Batteries are no problem for short distance truck rides, but they may be less suitable for long stretches on the highway. A truck that could charge with a pantograph while driving could possibly be a solution to this. However, this system with overhead wires also has a major disadvantage. For the system to work, overhead lines must be installed on the highways throughout Germany and possibly even Europe. That will cost a lot of money and will also require a lot of maintenance. I'm curious what you think about this. Do you say, yeah, let's build it? Or do you prefer batteries? Let me know in the comments. Well, the sun has gone down. I'm going to sleep and I see you in the morning. But where do I sleep? Well, if you paid attention, in the second shot of the video, you could have seen that there is no passenger seating. That's because I built my bed in there. I sleep in the car, have everything I need in the trunk, and I can even cook dinner at any place I like. I put my homemade window covers up and I can go to bed. And now I have converted the car in a very cozy bedroom. What else does a person need? Good night. Hello and welcome to Kühlungsborn, a small town on the Baltic Sea. It's a bit of a touristy place with a beach, beach huts, restaurants and of course the seagulls. But of course, that's not what I'm here for. No, I'm here for the Mollybahn steam train. I didn't come for the steam train though. After all, I could have seen that in the Netherlands too. No, I came here for one of the most unique pieces of railway in Europe. And this train happens to drive over it. Because the train is going to drive over the unique stretch of track and the train is ready to depart, we will get on to see what makes this railway line unique. Or wait, I have a band that also needs to come along. So, this is Bad Doberan, 15 kilometers further on the other side of the line. Here, the train runs through the middle of town on the old streets. And it's not just any old street. It is even designated as a pedestrian area. It actually makes no sense at all. I mean, it breaks all the rules of a pedestrian area. With the train steaming through the village up to twice an hour in the summer, it has become the main attraction of Bad Doberan. In every gift shop I could find, it was full of Molly train things, and there are even songs written about it.
Wer stampft über Felder, der Molly, der Molly. Wer fährt mit Gewimmel die Straßen entlang? Wer macht dicke Wolken, der Molly, der Molly. Der pfeift immer fast so schön wie Vogelgesang.
Welcome to the Autobahn. At the moment I am driving towards Berlin and the weather is nice, so the conditions for driving are good. As I got closer to Berlin, I noticed that Germany also has rush hour lanes on the highway shoulders. I always thought that that was a Dutch thing, but apparently not. And here I am on the outer ring of Berlin. This city is full of metro lines and beautiful stations. So let's explore my top 10 most beautiful metro stations in Berlin. Welcome to number 10 on the list, Klosterstrasse. This station was recommended to me by Mr. Sandwich, mostly because of two special things this station has. The first is this, an old metro train wagon that has been placed at the entrance and exit of the station. The second special feature is that the station has images of trams and metro trains hanging along the entire walls. Like most metro stations in Berlin, this station is built just below the surface. This is because they were built with the cut and cover method, where, simply put, a trench is dug, a metro line is built and the trench is then covered again. Cheap and technically the most feasible in that time. When we leave the station, we see that the station is located in a historic part of Berlin. The arch over the entrance fits well with this. Welcome to station 9 on the list, Unter den Linden. This station is by far the newest on this list, opening in 2020. It's just about 4 years old now. This station is part of an extension of the U5 towards Alexanderplatz and was built right under the existing U6, making a smooth transfer possible. Unfortunately, this meant that the existing station on the U6, Französische Straße, which was located a little further to the south, had to be closed. As far as I'm concerned, this is a small disadvantage, but absolutely necessary because transfer times must be kept as short as possible. So thumbs up Berlin. Oh, by the way, this is a small loading gauge train on a large loading gauge line, but I will explain that to you later because first we are going to the next station. Welcome to Schlesische Stork. This station gives me a bit of a farm feeling with those roof tiles on the canopies in combination with the bend in the tracks. I don't know. Also with the brick building incorporated into it, I just like it. But to tell you a fact, did you know that this station was a terminus station at the time of the Berlin Wall? After this ban, the tracks crossed the Spree River with the Oberbaumbrücke, which was at the border at the time. The Oberbaumbrücke is a beautiful bridge, by the way. This is a small loading gauge station, by the way. The difference is, oh wait, it's time to go to the next station. Deutsche Oper is a station with 4 platform sides equipped with green columns in the middle. I don't know exactly what this is, and I also wonder why there is a box here that prevents you from using this platform in a passenger service. After my online research, I thought it would look nicer. Even when you get to the surface, it isn't that beautiful at all. Anyway, let's move to the next one, and I think I have to reconsider the station ranking at the end. This is Hackische Markt, an S-Bahn station on the East-West railway line through the city center. For the public transport nerds among us, I know this is not an U-Bahn, but I don't care. I make the rules. For the other people, the difference between an S-Bahn and an U-Bahn is that an S-Bahn is more like a train and also goes further outside the city than an U-Bahn. Anyway, the reason I have this station in the top 10 is because I think the brick walls with the steel girders and the wooden roof simply fit together nicely. Unfortunately, when the platforms were made longer, a canopy was added that, in my opinion, does not fit at all. Alright, let's go to the top 5. Welcome to Hermannplatz, a station with some height, which is quite special for a Berlin metro station. The reason for this is that this is the deepest platform of the cross station and that this space is built, as it were, like a U around the platform above. When you come from outside and enter the station, you are greeted by such a hall. I mean, I think that's pretty impressive. And those little details in the ceiling? I love it. It's a bit of a shame that there were construction works on the other side, but whatever, on to the next. Welcome to Vierberlinerplatz, but unfortunately I found out that it was under construction work too. So no metro trains this time, but beer tables and benches. With the exception of those, I think that the atmosphere of the past has been very well preserved on this platform. Which is funny, because the other platform and the building on the surface are typically 1970s. Which is in great contrast. Welcome to U-Bahnhof number 3, Rathaus Spandau, the most western metro station in Berlin and terminus of the large loading gauge line 7. At least for the time being. An extension of the line is planned and they have more plans for the station. They want to extend the small loading gauge line 2 to here and beyond. When they constructed the station, they had already taken this into account, so there is room for 4 tracks. Of these, only the middle 2 are now in use. During my research, the station immediately stood out to me with its pillars, lamps and yes, actually the whole picture. I think this station definitely earns it to be in the top 3 most beautiful stations of Berlin. Oh, now that we are talking about the large and small loading gauge thing, I might as well explain it very briefly for those of us who don't know what it is. Basically, a train has 2 and perhaps more gauges. You have the track gauge, where Berlin uses standard gauge across the entire network. But you also have loading gauge. That's basically how high and wide the train is, and that's important if you don't want to hit the platform or have a large gap between the train and the platform. The Berlin metro network has 2 different loading gauges. Very inconvenient, although there must be an historical reason for this. But now, one part of the train fleet cannot be exchanged with the other, unless you widen the small gauge trains with planks things, as is currently temporarily done on the U5. Well, that's enough. I want to go to the next station. Welcome to perhaps the strangest station on this list, Berlin Hauptbahnhof. There must be a U-Bahn station hidden somewhere in this 3-story complex. And that makes the station technically eligible? Anyway, who cares? We're already there. Well, this is Berlin Hauptbahnhof. A station built from scratch in 2006, made of glass and steel. This, in combination with the 3 levels, makes it an enormously impressive structure. The station is served by all kinds of trains, ranging from international to high-speed to S-Bahn trains. This is partly via the north-south connection, which is located in a tunnel, and partly via the Stadtbahn, the east-west railway, where Hackische Markt is also located. The relatively new U5 that we have already seen at Unter den Linden starts from this station. On to number 1, but before I did that, I had to be the typical tourist, eating delicious currywurst. Look, that's the Reichstag. And this is the Brandenburger Tor? Whatever. Let's go to the number 1 most beautiful U-Bahn station of Berlin. Welcome to the number 1 most beautiful station of Berlin, Heidelberger Platz. With its stone pillars and ceiling, it is in stark contrast with any other metro station in Berlin. The station gives the feeling as if you are standing in a cathedral, really nicely done by the builders at the time. At the entrance you will find this glass dome. What else can I say? Oh yeah, I based the order of the stations on my online research, but after visiting I changed the order to this. I find myself in a forest just outside Berlin, and I am on my way to an old railway yard that has been converted into a public park. And here we are. At the S-Bahn station Priesterweg, there is an abandoned railway yard that has been converted into a public park. The old tracks can still be found throughout the park, some of which have been used for footpaths. However, that's not the only thing. There are all kinds of hidden gems like this underpass, or this thing, or this underpass. But the highlight has to be this locomotive, or this turntable. Man, it's packed here. By the way, if you want to visit this, it costs €1. Welcome to tramline 87 in Berlin. Here they still run trams from the 1960s. Wait, this is line 88. Oh no. And I'm boarding it. Well, this is the somewhat older tram, which does run on a meter gauge, but was not the tram I expected. That one looks like this and runs 4.5 kilometers east from here. Well, in conclusion, always do your research carefully, and maybe I'm gonna visit it next year or something. It's time to leave Berlin and head back west, towards a canal that is literally built with a bridge over a river. But first, Straßenschäden. This is betonkrebs, a problem on many former East German motorways. And when I say a problem, I mean a very big problem. At the time, a wrong raw material was used, causing a chemical reaction that expands the concrete. Kilometer upon kilometer of the autobahns of the former East Germany have this problem and are now all being completely demolished and rebuilt way before their expected end date. A huge expense and a blunder. Welcome to our next stop, the Canal Bridge of Magdeburg. We have now gone a bit west from Berlin and we are now at the largest canal underbridge in the world. And I must say, it is certainly not small. The bridge was built to allow ships to sail from the west to Berlin or vice versa, without having to descend into and then climb out of the Elbe River. The bridge is 918 meters long, 34 meters wide, and has a longest span of 106 meters. Quite impressive if you take the weight of the water into account. After the bridge I started driving south, straight through the Harz, which is a low mountain range in the middle of Germany. The roads became steeper, which my car didn't necessarily like, considering it has a 75 horsepower diesel engine and that it is packed with, I quote, all the stuff I need. But with a slightly higher RPM than normal, it was certainly still doable. Luckily, these are the largest slopes of the trip, or are they not? Well, let's don't get ahead of ourselves. I did something with horses and then came across this steam train. I've just found out that a little cable was not good connected, so the audio of the last videos wasn't there. It's a bit sad, but I am at the diesel trams in Ilfeld. This railway is shared between the diesel trams and the occasional steam train, which we have seen on the way here. The trams come from the tram network of Nordhausen, where the trams just do normal tram things, driving around with an overhead line. However, a branch line originates from the town all the way to Ilfeld. This line runs over the Harzquerbahn, a railway used by steam trains. As such, the line was not electrified. Very nice to see, but not very practical for the tram or the citizens of Ilfeld. So it was decided to run hybrid trams between the steam trains, driving electric on the city network and diesel on the branch line. I'm going to Leipzig to see some other train infrastructure. Welcome at the Leipzig S-Bahn. And here we are, Leipzig Markt. As you can see, this is a modern train tunnel, which is built under the old city center of Leipzig. Leipzig has several S-Bahn trains crisscrossing the city, which are all funneled through this tunnel through the city center. So the service here is quite good. This red train just rolled in, which means that some lines of the S-Bahn are run by Deutsche Bahn and some lines are run by another company. What was funny to see is that the overhead lines were not made of hanging wires, but of a rigid steel beam. As you can see, this station has very much space, height, which makes it feel very open, which I very like. Now I'm gonna walk to the Hauptbahnhof, through the city center, and there are some steam trains that stand on the platform there. And here we are, Leipzig Hauptbahnhof. Welcome to Europe's largest station by floor area. When you come out of this little entrance hall, you enter the main hall with all the train tracks. Leipzig Hauptbahnhof is a terminal station with 24 tracks. The station roof is even larger than that, with a width of 300 meters. A width of 300 meters. The station is so huge, they have even room for some parking spaces. But more interestingly, a small railway museum. And that perhaps makes the station even more special for railway fans. Here is one of the Kriegslok steam locomotives. Here are a few old electric locomotives. And this is an electric express train from the Nazi Germany era. This is all fitted in this busy station next to the indoor 3-layer parking garage. All possible because of that enormous roof. Which, by the way, matches the steam locomotive very nicely. I like it. Under one of the arches, the entrance has been made to the recently opened city tunnel, via which we came into the city. And with this, the Leipzig Hauptbahnhof is actually no longer a real terminus station. But I am not taking the train, I'm going to walk through the city center. What I noticed is that the trams here sometimes have a trailer thing. For example, this modern tram pulls one trailer, and these two older trams pull the trailer together. Interesting. Anyway, I made it back to another station. Like Leipziger Markt station, does this station have a high ceiling and it's very spacious.
Fällt heute auf. Grund dafür ist eine Reparatur am Zug.
And I'm back at Barklenberg Großstädtern. I'm on my way to Dresden and oh no, I'm pulled over. Just for a general drug check, but they didn't find anything. This viaduct is located a little outside of Dresden, between two tunnels. Anyway, there are some pretty nice viewpoints here. For example, this one. I mean, this just looks like a miniature railway. And now I find myself at the border of the Czech Republic. First, a sunset drive through the Czech Republic. Good morning. Yesterday I drove about 20 kilometers in the Czech Republic and now I'm back in Germany because I'm gonna head into Poland. Soon after crossing the border, I took the highway all the way to the next big city, Wrocław. Welcome to Useless Facts with Holland Station. Until a few years ago, this stretch of highway was the last stretch of Hitler's original Rijksautobahn. And with a road surface of about 80 years old, this stretch of highway was known for its poor condition. Anyway, that's no longer relevant because the last stretch of renovated highway opened in 2023. Welcome to Wrocław. Here they have indicated at the traffic lights how long it will take before they turn green. Is this the future? Oh no, it's just normal life. Look at this water tower, beautiful. Here I'm gonna take the tram to the city and see what it's like. So you can buy your ticket on the tram and it's only 160 Polish money, which is this in euros. And here we are in the north of the city. Now I'm gonna walk back. I noticed that the city has two sides. Some parts are beautiful with historic buildings and some parts have 1950s flats in between them. Anyhow, these benches were nice. And I've arrived at the station. This station has 10 platforms. I think Polish trains use them for stops. And yeah, what else can you say about a station? Well, that it is beautiful. Anyway, I'm gonna take the tram back to the car and then drive to the next city. For this trip I set the following goals: not paying for tolls and overnight stays. Well, you have already seen what the last goal on the journey looks like. But from now on, the first goal will also become relevant. I will hardly use a highway for the next 1800 kilometers. From now on I almost only used B roads, but I like it this way, because I'm not in a hurry and I can see a lot more of the surroundings. Poland has crosswalks everywhere. In town, out of town, even on the dual carriageway. For me as a traffic guy, it was quite a strange experience.
10 kilometer doorrijden op de droger Krajowa 94.
Hello, and I've arrived in the second city, Krakow. I don't know exactly why, but apparently I didn't film much of the city itself. But I thought it was a beautiful city. It didn't have those 1950s apartment buildings like Wrocław, which made the city center look much nicer. And with a beautiful castle next to it, the picture is complete. Okay, let's find this place to spend the night. Okay, welcome in my car. I got a problem. I drove myself stuck on a piece of asphalt. I'll explain. I was searching for a place to sleep under a viaduct because the whole night it will be lightning. And the road to the viaduct was unpaved and it was wet and I got almost stuck. But luckily I found some piece of asphalt. I'm now there, but there is no way off this piece of asphalt. I will explain in the voiceover. Yep, so this is the situation. These are the viaducts. First I drove to this one on this road, but it turned out that a huge ditch had been dug so that you could no longer get from here to here. Then I went on this route, and man, I almost got stuck. It was already getting dark and I didn't want to get stuck at all costs, because I depend on my car to continue traveling and eventually get home. Luckily I made it to an asphalt road. But before I wanted to spend the night there, I wanted to know how I could get away from this place. So I drove along the entire road, but there was no way to get off this piece of asphalt, except these 5 unpaved roads. The other roads that were shown on the map didn't exist anymore. They were probably temporary roads for the construction of the highway. By the way, there was no phone service, so I couldn't zoom in and see the condition of the roads on satellite view. Anyway, these 2 roads were uphill into the woods and were probably dead ends. This one was impassable and overgrown with bushes, so only this road and the way I got here remained as options. As I was in shock of almost getting stuck at the road I came from, I tried the other one. First it was fine, but then it got steeper and steeper to the point I couldn't reverse or turn back. So I went down into the valley, but then there was a river, which was swollen due to the rain, to a point I definitely couldn't cross it. Luckily there was another road back up the hill. I drove past a house with 4 Polish men looking weird at me and my car, but for the second time I made it to my piece of asphalt. In the meantime it had already become quite dark, so I parked my car under the viaduct and here I am. Tomorrow it's also gonna rain, so I don't know how this will end, but I guess you have... Tonight I spent the night here under this bridge, and now I welcome you to my attempt to go with this car with only rear wheel drive down this very muddy unpaved road. Yesterday I have driven up this road and today it's going down, but it's still very scary, and if I get stuck I have another problem. Made it back to the asphalt. Well, let's go into Slovakia. What immediately stood out was that the road in Slovakia suddenly became very wide without any markings. Maybe it was built this wide for waiting trucks for the border. Maybe it was a prestige project of the former communist government. I have no idea. Do you have any ideas why? And here we have reached the easternmost point of the journey. 930 kilometers further east of where I come from. And you could tell. I didn't change time zones, so the sun came up more than an hour earlier than at home. At the same time, it also set more than an hour earlier, which had already surprised me a few times when looking for a place to sleep. Anyway. Before we arrive at the train for the football stadium, we first have to cross a small pass. Due to the lack of highways, all trucks in this direction have to use this road too. So soon I found myself behind a truck, slowly climbing the mountain. And I arrived at this railway museum. Because this railway museum runs 4 or 3 lines in this region, and one of which goes through the football stadium, between the field and the thing. The grandstand. Thank you. As you can see, it's a narrow gauge railway. And it seems quite a bit bumpy, so it's definitely not for high speed, but it's quite cute. If my information is correct, they will leave a train in about 20 minutes from here towards the football stadium. I don't think it's a steam train because it is Monday today, but I don't know which one, if there is one.
Vážení cestující, prišli si dostanete čierny balón. Pozývame vás na múzea, bufetu a reštaurácie Lampári. A práve na príjemný počet.
Well, I'm gonna drive to the football field and I'll see you there. So there we are. There is the football field. There is the thing. The grandstand. And here are the rails. Unfortunately, it's private terrain, so I'm not gonna be able to get on there, but I can film it from this angle. I'm gonna see if I can catch it on another place again. So let's go. Well, I have a plan. There is a railway crossing. I'm gonna film it there, drive to here and film over this fence, which has a better view. Good morning from the outskirts of Budapest. Let's go on board of this old Soviet train towards the city center. Budapest has a number of these type of lines that connect the suburbs with the city center. Definitely recommend it if you have a thing for trains and are visiting Budapest. By the way, they are absolutely not wheelchair accessible. I've never seen such a high step into a train. And I've arrived in the city center. Here we can change to the metro. In Berlin, I did know where I wanted to go, but here I don't, so I'm just gonna catch a train somewhere. I realized that the front and the end of the train were much less busy, so I'm gonna change trains to the next train, if that makes sense. Well, that was the M2, which was one of the more boring lines. Now I'm gonna change to the green line, which is the... Well, I thought the M2 was one of the newer metro lines, but this one, the M4, look at the station. I realized that this station is actually one of the railway stations I wanted to visit. So I'm gonna explore the railway station. Besides the fact that the station has a very nice entrance hall, which I showed you, I also noticed that people in Hungary find it a lot more normal to walk on the tracks. This is done by both staff and travelers. Quite different from the Netherlands. Furthermore, this station is a terminus station, but many trains consist of a locomotive and a row of carriages. This means that there are constant log movements to take the wagons out of the station. Not efficient at all, but it is cool to see. Anyway, back to the M4. Alright, I am at St. Gelatermuegetem or something like that. And this is actually the only station that I selected in advance to go to. I mean, look at these arches and mosaic. I think it's a really cool design. What do you think? Let me know in the comments. A thing I just discovered is that these trains on the M4 are driverless. So I hope to catch a seat at the front. And I am on the M3, and I believe, if my information is correct, there are some old communist style trains here. These metro train sets were originally built in Russia in the Soviet Union. Since 2018, all train sets have been modernized. Before the modernization, they looked like this. These old Soviet metro train sets are very recognizable because of their sides. You can find those all over the former Soviet Union. I've come to the end of the line, and there is a very old station here, but I'm gonna turn back and I'll show you the train. Let's go to the last but not least metro line, the M1. This is the... Wait, let's go to the actual beginning station.
Viszontlátásra.
This is the M1 metro, the oldest metro on Europe's mainland. The M1 is a 4.5 kilometer long line that opened in 1896. There have been some adjustments over the years, but as you can see, most things are still in quite a historic state. By the way, this end of the line is located right in the center of Budapest, near its well-known riverside tram. Beautiful. Anyway, let's take a trip down the line.
Üdvözöljük utasainkat! Ez az M1-es metró a Mexikói út felé. A Deák Ferenc tér következik. Az ajtók a jobb oldalon nyílnak. Átszállhatnak a természetesen.
And arrived at the endpoint at a modern station. Now I'm going to turn back to a station I saw on the train called Opera. So the one thing I missed at the first station and that they do have here are these boxes. Anyway, I'm going to go to a tram, which isn't really a tram but climbs the hill with a sort of system. I'm going to take a tram towards a wreck railway here in Budapest, which is very historic and old. And here we are, Budapest wacky wreck railway thing, tram thing. And it works like this. Under the tram or train sets there are not only normal wheels but also this gear. The sprocket engages with the center rail thing and thus prevents the wheel from starting to slip down the hill. Super handy of course, but it also makes a lot of noise. Let's get on the thing. I stepped out of the train one station before its terminus, and I can tell you the train surely goes steep. And the train was full of mountain bikers who go with their bikes to the top to ride down. So filming the inside of the train is a job for our way down. Well, that's not how you are supposed to board a train. As I missed my train, I decided to walk to the tram's terminus to catch a train downhill. Made it, and I have 2 extra shots of the train. Let's go inside. Well, there was 20 minutes up and 20 minutes down. After that I headed into Budapest and took some shots of the trams, and that was it. morning. I'm on my way to a very large railway museum here in Budapest. I thought I'd show you around. I find myself in the Dolomites in Italy, and let me show you how I got here. I find myself in Budapest and I'm going to drive towards the Alps via Croatia without using any highways. Join me on this adventure through the Hungarian, Croatian, Slovenian and Italian countryside. First things first, we have to get out of the city. As I don't want to pay tolls, I choose to drive only on B roads through Hungary. This means that you see a lot of the country. You go into villages and out again all the way to the border. And here I am, the border with Croatia. Since March 23rd, 2023, an open border. So I didn't have to stop, but instead go directly into the land of rear traffic lights. I don't know about you, but I thought these traffic lights only existed in Japan. Anyway, they are here. That was a surprise for me. After I spent the night near a little bit creepy abandoned building in the middle of the forest, I arrived at the Adriatic Sea. Oké, ik ben in Slovenië en ik ga hier een stap zetten. Zo, nou heb ik 1 stap gezet in Slovenië. After I spent the night here next to this pile of logs, because the parking on the other side of the road was full of campers and vans, it was time to head into Austria, into the real mountains. And now we're already in Germany. Time flies. We're gonna head into München, into the metro and the city. Good morning, I'm at the München U-Bahn, and one of the things I want to see is the A-Klasse, the old A-Klasse trains. Well, that's already found. So in this train you can still open the window. I think, yes.
Durchfahrt, Wasserstraße.
Those trains are very old, but it surprised me how quiet they are. I don't know what it is, but this is already the second U6 train that ends here, and there's still no U3 train. And I arrived at Odeonsplatz, where an elevator concealed within a pillar lifts you straight from a classical garden to the platform below. Well, that's what I call efficient. Let's go on the U4. Correction, U5. They do share the platform here, so I have to wait 7 minutes until my train. Here I'm going to change to an S-Bahn that runs through the city in a tunnel, a bit like the Leipzig or Hamburg one. And you know what I said in Hamburg? But you might say, this isn't a metro. Yes, it isn't a metro, but it has a service like a metro, so I like to ride on this as well. The same applies here. Alright, it's not running because there are Bauarbeiten. So I'm going back on the U5 to Innsbrucker Platz. As you can see, and may probably have found out already, there are a lot of cross-platform transfers here available, which is quite nice. And again, I missed the train. And welcome to Theresienwiese. Theresienwiese has a yellow roof with those black things. I don't know, I like it. And I'm back at Odeonsplatz. Now I'm going to Marienplatz. And I arrived at Marienplatz. Thank you for watching. I'm going to drive home to the Netherlands and I see you there. Bye.